I have been practicing Kung Fu Chinese martial arts since I was a kid, and it has really grown from a hobby to a passion, something that I've found to be physically and mentally empowering, and something that I've also built community around. Martial arts has been an important part of my own identity. Not to say that I consider myself a martial artist, but it's something I constantly extract lessons and reflections from to use in my everyday life. So I wanted to explore how practicing martial arts shapes someone's identity beyond the sport itself. And I interviewed 5 of my friends and peers who lead different journeys in martial arts. This is Beyond the Studio, Martial Arts and Identity.
Hi, my name is Eric Ye. I'm a junior at the University of Southern California, majoring in journalism, minoring in cinematic arts. So I've been doing, I guess, if you want the colloquial version, is Kung Fu, but more specifically Wushu, and I've been doing that since 3rd grade. What makes Wushu specifically unique is it's a combination of acrobatic power movements with the punchings, the rollings, the kicks and everything. It's just a lot more flashy, I guess, if you will. For me personally, I got into it actually more because of my dad. He wanted me to do something at a young age. It's like something that was like related to the Chinese culture, if you will. A little funny tidbit is like halfway through when I started, I thought about quitting at one point. I don't know, for some reason, I guess I just lost the love for it. But I think this is what makes my coach honestly so great. I think he kind of saw that and just wasn't putting in the effort. So he like brought me to one of these competitions at like the University of Maryland. I'm from the East Coast, just to see. I wasn't competing, but he brought like a bunch of students. I was one of them. And that's how I was like reignited. I saw everyone just doing crazy movements, kicks with weapons, different weapons, long weapons, short weapons, and I was like, that's something I want to aspire to. Beyond like just cultural identity, it's been really a part of me now. I went to that competition, and even though it's at University of Maryland, which is technically collegiates, they also allow like non-college students to compete. So like I competed there multiple times. There was this one time, I think it was 2019, it was like right before COVID. I had signed up to compete again. I think it would be like, well, it was like my 4th year going in a row. 2019, honestly, it was just a very rough year for my family and I. There's just something happening with like school and everything. It was like a teacher that was just like very condescending. So I wasn't doing well in the class. And it was very difficult to switch out of the class. And then like my mother had some health issues, and then like my grandfather like passed away that year. Like it was all literally the culmination of like within a month. And so everything was just happening so fast. And then I sprained my ankle. It seems like minor, but I sprained it pretty bad. It knocked me out of the competition. I had to withdraw. Like I needed crutches. So like, and most people think sprained ankles aren't that bad, but I needed crutches for it, and I couldn't compete. And I just remember that was just like, it was extremely devastating. I'm first sad already with like what's happening family-wise, and honestly school-wise, I was like 3rd on the list, and I couldn't go compete. That was like such a bummer to me, because there's so much work that goes into prepping, and I'm sure any athlete can attest to this, whether it's football, figure skating, whatever. So I missed the competitions in December, but trials for the national teams were coming up in March. That would be then for the summer, like around June, for June's competition. I was just so happy to be able to go back, and I had like, again, of how like going to competition reignited my love for it, I had another drive. I was like, I want to bounce back. You know, every athlete wants to bounce back. Like Tom Brady has the quarterback for Patriots and Buccaneers. It's a great thing. Like when he throws an interception, yes, he's going to think about it for a little bit. He'll look at the film and everything and be like, what happened? But then he's going to put it in the back of his head, you know, almost like Ted Lasso in that quote, like memory of a goldfish. So it's like, you know, we're going to put that behind, new goal in mind. And I think just Kung Fu really, because it's really like your own like self-sport, kind of like gymnastics. It teaches you great discipline and everything. And I think that was able to help me just really put in like 110% effort to go out for the trials. So I went out for the trials, and I guess the story has a good ending. I was on the 2019 U.S. National Kung Fu team, and went to China to go compete. Sports in general is just so unifying, no matter where it comes from. And I really saw that with the championships in 2019. You know, it was so many different countries. We're all practicing on the same mat. We have our own designated times. But you know, in the downtime, you talk to other people. And I mean, like I said, it originated in China 3,000 years ago. And what I found was so amazing was that a lot of the people I communicated with, like teams from Brazil, Turkey, Egypt, France, they spoke Mandarin. And that was the craziest thing. So I would communicate with them in Mandarin. And this is just like, you know, all the athletes there were all brought together by Kung Fu. and we can all share experiences with like tips. Oh, this is how I'm able to do this kick. You know, extra rotations. That you do that weapon. I've never learned that before, and it's just so like it's a great atmosphere that's been built around this sport. I would say that it also teaches me like progress occurs in like small increments. That one's kind of cliche, but like, you know, whenever you work for things, you know, there's always step by steps. You're not just gonna get something. That's not true. Sometimes you'll get lucky, right? Just jump straight to the end, but progress occurs in small increments. What's great about that is I'm able to apply that to my life and everything. Like that is like such a physical thing that I'm able to apply it mentally, you know, to like whatever classwork I'm doing for my major, minor, for my internships and whatnot. And then when you go compete, obviously it helps build like a physical and mental fortitude. I've competed at University of Maryland so many times. I compete on the world stage, but even then, every time I step out on the thing, it's nerve-wracking. And honestly, that's good because it makes you makes sure you're human. It's good to feel nervous, even though you've been at it for like competed for like 5+ years. Which keeps you in check. There's like an aspect of kind of respect. You know, like with the coach and everything, you understand that people are trying to help you, and then every time you give my coach, he's definitely on the harder side, but I never took it for granted. I mean, looking back, it was literally, he would be hard on me, but he would do it to help like make sure, like, because he knew I could be able to take it, but like he wants you to become the best version of yourself. And, you know, sometimes you have to be like that for yourself in your own life, you know, when you don't have a mentor figure and when you're doing work to push you beyond that. You know, sometimes you have to be your own driving factor.
Hi, I'm Eileen. I am a sophomore, double majoring in applied math and linguistics. I've been doing Taekwondo for over a dozen years now and Kung Fu for about 2 years. So Taekwondo I've been doing for over a dozen years now. I actually got into it because my parents wanted to put me in a self-defense class, and I guess the closest martial art studio was in fact a Taekwondo one. So that's how I got into that. For Kung Fu, I came to USC knowing that I wanted to do another martial art that wasn't just Taekwondo to like expand my horizons, and then I saw that Kung Fu was like, you know, kind of just free but then also because I also really wanted to learn more about my Chinese heritage as well, so I decided to show up to see what it was like, and here I am. For Taekwondo, I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from my experience with that is self-discipline. Taekwondo is a very regimented, very like strictly this and then that kind of system of martial arts. I think that's really carried over into my personal life as well, because it's very hard not to pick up on the kind of discipline that you need to progress in Taekwondo and then just apply that elsewhere in your life. Kung Fu, I think, has kind of taught me how to like be a little looser in everything, because like Taekwondo is a very everything has to be very straight and like stable and just there's not a lot of room to like do your own thing or be super creative. I think Kung Fu definitely has allowed me to showcase that side of myself more. And I also think that Kung Fu has just been really good for me to like get back in touch with my Chinese heritage, because like a lot of the people in the Kung Fu club are Chinese, and they have all this experience with the kind of culture and atmosphere that Kung Fu has from when they grew up doing Kung Fu. So like it's really nice hearing like people just like yelling like 加油 or stuff like in Chinese when we're performing or like competing or whatever. And it's just like, and then when we do things like Lunar New Year potlucks, it's just a really nice way to like keep in touch, especially while I'm at college, not necessarily surrounded by a lot of Chinese people. So I feel like martial arts in general, whether that's Taekwondo or Kung Fu, I feel like it's really helped me in two ways outside of just the sport itself. The first is the ability to work under pressure, or like a confidence in my mental ability. So because like it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you perform, if you compete, even if you're just like practicing in front of your peers, it's always like a little nerve-wracking to kind of put yourself out there and then get critique back. Of course, that's like a very like important part of improving as a martial artist in general. So it's like being able to perform and like to the best of my ability, even under that kind of pressure, especially growing up doing competitions the way I did. Like it's always good to know that I am capable of, you know, getting things done no matter how stressed I am, no matter how much of a time crunch I'm on. And so it's just that kind of being able to work under pressure has really helped me, especially considering how much like other extracurriculars I have. And then secondly, I think just like self-confidence in the physical sense as well. Like I have confidence in what my body can do. I like understand my body's limits pretty well. I know like if I want to try this, then I trust that my body like will be there to like help me execute it, not just like I think I can do it, but I know that my body's capable of doing it. And I feel like that's really helped me a lot with like just body image in general, because I know like in Western culture, like there's a very big like kind of stigma around certain body types, but like I've never like felt the need to like change myself in any way, because I think like knowing that my current body has the capability of doing all these like crazy amazing things made me be like, oh yeah, like why would I change that, right? Like it's perfectly fine the way it is. Recently, I wrote a paper for my class, International and Historical Perspectives on Dance. What I wrote about specifically was the perception of gender in Taekwondo. And I wrote about this because Taekwondo is like inherently a very gendered sport, because it's very clearly like subdivided into two categories, which is the fighting one and the performing one. And like it's pretty like the stereotypes that surround like just those two words even makes it pretty clear that like, you know, the fighting part is very male coded and the performing part is very female coded. Women are more often than not kind of like just pushed into doing the performance aspect of Taekwondo instead of the fighting one, and men often like, you know, find that the opposite happens to them. And then I also found this really interesting idea of the feminine paradox, which is that in martial arts and in any sort of sport where it's seen like as like historically a male kind of sport and not for women, or like that women are biologically inferior and shouldn't be doing this sport, or some kind of like that concept, if that's ingrained in a sport, then like women, even if they're like in like even if they practice the sport, a lot of times to be accepted by the community at large, it requires them to like perform almost in a separate manner, like as like more female than maybe that they'd want to. So I felt like that was really interesting, because that does happen in Taekwondo, and I feel like that is something that does need to change, because that is the system that I grew up in, even though like, you know, it's not necessarily the best one.
Hi, my name is Beck Han. I'm currently a sophomore studying the BFA in acting program here at USC, and the martial art that I primarily do is Taekwondo. I've been doing Taekwondo for about 15 years now. My father's side does Taekwondo a lot, and my father's uncle is the one that really was into it, and he had a dojang in the school himself, and that was where he taught a lot of my family members. But generally it's just something that a lot of Korean parents do. They put their kid into a Taekwondo program for after school or for after school activities, just to, you know, babysit in that certain way. But I think over time my parents found that I actually really enjoyed it, so they kind of stuck with it, and here I am now. But Taekwondo originally is very conflicting, and there's a lot of different opinions and different viewpoints and different theories on how it came to be. Korea did have their own martial art, and some people believe it was Taekwon or Taekyon, and then other people believe it was something else, where it's not like a very named martial art. But simple answer is, when Japan took over Korea and occupied it and enslaved the Korean people, they also forced onto the learning of karate, and I believe it was like just general karate, and just there's a different faction in karate as well. But Taekwondo mainly derives from karate and other East Asian martial arts as well. So it's honestly is more of a mixed martial art than anything. There's a lot of techniques and different styles. I personally, my main style is WT, the World Taekwondo Federation Taekwondo, Kukiwon Taekwondo. But I do know, and I was taught ITF as well, and I think it's very important to learn, whether or not you prefer a certain style, I think it's very important to learn both. The first moment is definitely when I was at my first competition. I failed and I lost like completely, and I feel like that was like the kicking point of like, I feel this is something I really want to do, and it's giving me drive to continue to better myself. And I think the second point was probably when I began to realize this concept of diversity. I was the only Korean kid at my school except for my brother, my younger brother of 1 year, and we were just the two Koreans there. And generally it's, you feel that sense of responsibility, but also like you feel cool, you know, you feel cool that you're doing a martial art that no one else really does, and this is your people's culture. And I feel like that's probably the main thing that I really draw from. and also because it looks cool. I think a lot of people, when they do martial arts, it's either for self-defense. A lot of people actually, more people than I thought originally, do this stemming from trauma and stemming from the need to defend themselves in situations. But for me, I've had a great life. My parents are great, and I have nothing to complain about, nothing to look for. So I feel that this mainly is because I enjoy it and it looks cool. I don't think martial arts, I think the definition of martial arts shouldn't be just martial. It's not just for defense and for attack. It's to celebrate culture, celebrate identity, and what you want to do. And it can just look cool. It doesn't have to look or draw from any self-defense technique. But I feel like that, the combination of having drive after losing competitions, being the only Korean person in my school, and also finding the cool aspects of Taekwondo and weapons and demonstration, I feel like is the main reason why I stuck with it for so long, and now I stick with it. There's always been like a longing to know more. My parents speak Korean at home, so I'm kind of one of those kids that know exactly what they're saying in Korean but can't really reciprocate or talk back in Korean and respond. So a lot of Korean kids actually I've learned have that same experience where because they need to learn English, because they're in an American school, they kind of abandon the speaking aspect, the vocal aspect of Korean and only rely on their listening aspect and reading aspect. But I feel that Taekwondo at least taught me a lot about Korean culture in the sense that I'm around for the first time other people that appreciate Korean culture. This is before BTS and K-pop, all that was the craze, and I feel that this is the one thing that I could actually clutch on and crutch on to feel at home. I think the biggest thing that Taekwondo has taught me is discipline. I think the biggest thing is not being fair to failure. I think discipline and failure. Like a biggest thing that I feel now is when tricking is where you do different kicks, different spinning kicks, and basically if you mix gymnastics and kicking, that's what you get if you see in movies and stunts. I personally am working in stunts as well, so tricking has been a big part of my career here, and I feel that when you fail, when times when you can't get that kick, when times when you can't remember, or even like in just daily life, I feel like I've fortunately gotten used to the fact of failing, so that when I fail, I'm not panicking when I fail, that I'm not looking and panicking, trying to find a different way out. I'm trying to calm down, assess the situation, and move forward in what I feel is the best way. And if that doesn't work, that's fine. You just move on to the next one. So I feel discipline is failure is the best thing. But another thing also is you're open-minded to ideas. I feel that in Taekwondo, one of the things I don't like is a lot of old geezer masters right now refuse to move on and adapt to different practices. Right now there's a big thing where, let's say for women's self-defense, women are incredibly oppressed here in the United States, and not even considering other places, but here in the United States is extremely taken advantage of. And I feel that a lot of masters will go, hey, we can have a women's self-defense class, and you'll learn all the skills you'll ever need for the rest of your life in this one class. And I feel that that's very misleading and misconstrued, and also manipulating in that sense, where they're taking advantage of a marginalized group to make money in that sense. And also self-defense, if you see Taekwondo self-defense, it is not self-defense. It is not something that I would recommend you do. And I feel that that's something that I've learned, that I cannot stick to one thing. This is why I'm branching out to other martial arts, and I feel it's also important. So I think Taekwondo, not the masters and not the coaches, but Taekwondo itself as a mixed martial arts itself has told me to look to other martial arts as well. Don't stick to one single narrow point of view. Try to branch out and try to see what else you can do and what else is available to you to make sure you know everything, or as many things as you can as possible, and also try to find your own point of view yourself instead of sticking to what's passed down from you from other people or above you in that hierarchy.
My name is Andre Walker. I am a business major and dance minor. Martial arts I study and practice are capoeira, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, and a little bit of Kung Fu. I started when I was 16. I watched Bruce Lee's Game of Death, and I was incredibly inspired, and I was like, okay, cool, I want to do that. So I went on Amazon and I ordered foam nunchucks and started spinning them out of my backyard. And then from there I progressed as a circus performer, and then I started spinning fire nunchucks and fire swords for Arkansas Circus Arts. With that, my persona was martial flow. So when I would perform, I would use a variety of different martial arts on stage. So the main martial art that I practice is capoeira. Capoeira is an Afro-Brazilian martial art. It uses a variety of different dodges, evasions, kicks, and acrobatics. It has a lot of like rich history and culture behind it. I started when I met a capoeirista who I like watched on Instagram all the time. I met him randomly at like a stunt event, and he was like, "Hey, come check out this event." I was like, "Okay, cool." I went, and then I met one of his teachers, and his teacher was like, "Hey, if you want to learn, I'll teach you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I started studying with him. Then I brought him to SC because there were like other people interested in learning capoeira, and then he started teaching here at SC. And then last year we founded and started the Capoeira Club at USC. And the cool thing about capoeira is it's one of those that you have to practice with another person. You can study like movements on its own, but to actually like practice capoeira, another person is required because you have to play off of their energy and you have to respond, and it's a conversation. Capoeira is played in a thing called a holda, which is what Portuguese translates to like circle or wheel. In this circle, everybody stands around in the circle. At the head of it, we have an instrument called a beating bow. This is what determines the game, determines like how we're going to play. It determines the speed and the intensity. The two players will meet at the head of the beating bow, and then they enter the hold up. And then through that, everybody is clapping, contributing energy to it. And then people will go to the head and we'll switch in, we'll switch out, blah, blah, blah. But with it, you're always learning and you're always teaching others in the hold up. We call it as like a representation of life. So capoeira on its own is inherently community based. It's also like an African martial art, and that's something that's stressed in the culture is community and collaboration, less individualistic and more community. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from martial arts in general is just that consistency and discipline breed success. So when I started off, I was completely terrible. I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever. My limbs were just flailing around. I was doing the best I could. But it was just a matter of showing up every day over and over and over and over again. Seeing that benefit was really like inspirational. And it's something, and it's like a philosophy that's like taken me through, like carried me through like my whole life, of putting oneself out there and failing over and over and over and over again until you get better. You can learn something from everyone. So whether that be like the top like a 5-degree black belt or someone who's just brand new, that ability to be humble and to be a student, that no matter what level you are still a student, that you are still learning. A black belt doesn't mean that, oh, you've mastered everything. It means that you just know the basics and that you have an understanding of the basics, and that there's still a lifetime of knowledge to be acquired. So that student mindset has been so beneficial across my journey, and I've learned so much in life from taking that mindset and that approach. You also learn like responsibility. The thing about martial arts and the thing that people don't understand is like the reality of violence. Something that seems small, like there's a disagreement and there's a scuffle and they're like, oh, okay, maybe we're gonna throw a couple of punches. Easily someone can go, oh, get hit, and they fall down and they hit their head on their concrete, and now, okay, permanently now their life is altered. Something as small as that with violence can escalate into something like terrible and permanent. So that's another thing that I learned, is the responsibility of using what you know to protect others and your family and to avoid situations. So since learning martial arts, I've learned to like avoid conflict. The first level of like martial arts is verbal like de-escalation and not even being in the room when something would pop off. And I think that's perhaps one of like the biggest things that I've learned from martial arts.
Hi, my name is Philip. I graduated December of 2023 with a business degree from the Marshall School of Business here at USC, and I've been doing martial arts my entire life. I started when I was 4. I did Taekwondo for around 8 years before transitioning to Shaolin Kung Fu, which I have been doing for around a decade now. And I've also done some American folk style wrestling and contemporary wushu. Kung Fu has helped me connect with my culture in a variety of ways. It has allowed me to explore something that has been the pride and a big part of the history of my culture. It has allowed me to have many opportunities to connect with people from around the world who share similar experiences practicing Kung Fu. A good example is how in the United States I trained with Shaolin monks that came from China to teach people here and spread the culture. And when I went to go study abroad in Hong Kong, a lot of the things that I learned here translated exactly to the things I was practicing there. There's something that sort of unified all of us and something that we all understood, and it helped me feel much more connected to my culture and my history. One of the most important lessons I've learned from Shaolin Kung Fu, beyond just the skills that it taught me with how to fight, how to use weapons, is actually the importance of humility. And what I mean by this is really understanding that there's always so much more you can learn, and there's always something you can learn from everybody. And this is something that translates well beyond just Kung Fu. Everything from work, school, other hobbies, lifting at the gym, whatever it might be for you. There's always more you can learn with what you do, and there's always something that you can learn from other people. Martial arts has shaped my life into who I am today in a lot of different ways. When I trained in Hong Kong, my coach there said that everything is Kung Fu, and that's something I really agree with. In the sense that there's lessons that you can pull from Kung Fu and translate it into your everyday life. Whether it's the importance of humility and understanding that there's something to learn from everybody, whether it's the discipline that you learn, or understanding that you're able to achieve so many new great heights and limits with the power of determination and the right mindset. There are just so many different lessons that I have learned that translate very well into other aspects of my life. And I believe that we are the product of our own experiences. And being able to have these experiences, have these lessons, and have these skills for martial arts has shaped me in so many different ways. The importance of discipline has been heavily emphasized in Shaolin Kung Fu just because of the amount of consistency and determination it takes to actually learn a lot of these skills. It's a very difficult thing to learn to look somebody else in the eye when you're at a competition or when you're sparring, knowing that they are fighting you with the intent of hitting you or hurting you. And the amount of training, practice, and just the mindset that it takes requires just so much discipline. But as a product of this discipline, you're able to learn so many different skills. You are able to achieve things that you were not able to previously, and you're able to just make so much progress in so many different ways. And this exact same lesson carries over to so many other aspects of my life. Whether it's in the gym, working towards a new goal with a lift, for example, or reaching another goal in my personal life, just the mindset of working hard, staying consistent, because if you stick with those, you will see results.